Okay. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order superseding certain provisions of the open meeting law, general laws, chapter 30A, section 18, and the governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Southborough Conservation Commission is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by going to www.southboroughtown.com/remote meetings. Okay, I'll call the meeting to order.
All right, and I'm just going to, when I call your name, just make sure you respond in the affirmative. So Judith?
Yes.
Ben?
Yes.
Carl?
Yes.
Russ?
Here.
Sherry?
Yes.
And Mark?
Here.
Just confirming that Jeff is not on the call. And then myself, Melissa Danza. So we will move on to the first hearing.
Okay, 7 p.m. Continued notice of intent and stormwater management permit, 1618 Middle Road, map 54, parcels 19 and 20. In accordance with the provisions of the Southborough Stormwater Erosion Control Bylaw, Southborough Zoning Code, Chapter 174, Section 13.5, Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 31, Section 40 of the Southborough Wetlands Bylaw, the Southborough Conservation Commission will hold a continued public hearings on Thursday, March 26, 2020 at 7 p.m. on the petition of Klein Family Realty Trust for an addition, new driveway, modification to the septic system, landscaping and stormwater management at 1618 Middle Road, map 54, parcel 19 and 20. These hearings are being held concurrently. And this is being continued to next meeting, which is April.
Right now it's April 16th, but that's the tentative town meeting date.
Okay,
So we can either, I mean, most likely that'd be pushed out again too. We can either schedule our next meeting for the 16th, or if we want to push it out even a week to the 23rd.
we have to meet within 21 days.
No, we don't have to if they're just continued, just for new public hearings.
Okay. So how would that work for the NOIs that are later on the agenda? We would have to meet on those on the 16th.
No, so we're opening in this meeting, so we're
Yes.
continuing just to a later date. So because we're opening within the 21 days, that's all that matters.
Oh, okay. All right, I gotcha.
Okay,
All right, so this is being continued to,
you can say to a date to be determined at later in the meeting. Like,
okay. So we continue to a date yet to be determined later in the meeting.
yeah,
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Who was that?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Okay. Then we have to vote by roll call. Those in favor? Judith?
Yes.
Ben?
Yes.
Carl?
Yes.
Russ?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Mark? Yes. All right, next up is continued notice of intent, Park Central, 0 Turnpike Road, map 33, 41, 24, 25, and lots 4, 4A, 3, and 5. In accordance with Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Southborough Conservation Commission will conduct a continued public hearing on Thursday, March 26, 2020 at 7 p.m. The commission will consider a notice of intent filed by the applicant and owner, Capital Group Properties, LLC, for a project located at 0 Turnpike Road, Park Central, maps 33, 41, 24, 25, and lots 4, 4A, 3, 5. The project description is a construction of a mixed residential development with wetland and stream crossings, stream restoration, and associated road work, stormwater utilities, and grading. This is also a continuance to a date and time to be determined later in this meeting. Do we hear a motion?
So moved.
That's
Second.
Russ.
That is correct.
Second by
Second.
that
Carl.
Carl?
Yep.
Okay, roll vote. Judith,
Yes.
Ben,
Yes.
Carl,
Yes.
Russ,
Yes.
Sherry,
Yes.
Mark? Yes. Next up is notice of intent. 12 McNeil Drive, map 45, lot 12. In accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Southfield Wetlands Bylaw, the Southfield Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing on Thursday, March 26, 2020 at 7 p.m. The commission will consider a notice of intent for a project located at 12 McNeil Drive, map 45, lot 12. The applicants Zomi Hong and Jaelun He. The project description is a septic repair. So this is being continued to a date and time yet to be determined later in this meeting. So I hear a motion to continue.
Yes, motion to continue.
That's Judith. Do I hear a second?
Second.
By Ben. Okay, vote by roll vote. Judith,
Yes.
Ben,
Yes.
Carl,
Yes.
Russ,
Yes.
Sherry,
Yes.
Mark? Yes.
Right. We have,
The next public hearing is scheduled for 7:10.
so we have 2 or 3 minutes, depending on which clock I look at. Do we want to talk about 84 Main Street quickly? I did send out, Matt had some comments from Peter, submitted the invasive species removal plan. So Matt's comments were there's a plan or site sketch that specifically identifies the limits of the ongoing vegetation management. The commission should be aware that removing the upper 6 to 8 inches of soil is unlikely to make a significant impact on the root structure of the Japanese knotweed. Knotweed roots are known to go as deep as 3 meters. That level of excavation is not feasible in this location. However, it may take sense to acknowledge that if specific root masses are encountered, as determined by the supervising wetland scientists, as much as root matter as possible should be removed. A specification for the wildlife seed mix or wildflower seed mix should be submitted for approval. The mix should include natives only and be from a local source. The name and qualifications of the herbicide applicator should be submitted to the commission prior to the start of the work. The plan states that approved glyphosate-based herbicide shall be used. It may make sense to include language for other options to be used, aka a better option if that may come along. And then the commission may wish to require reporting of the results and, you know, if modifications are needed. And then the final one, which I think is important, is how is this plan being officially approved? Is it part of the existing order of conditions? You know, is it an amendment or is it kind of a standalone document?
Could we do it as a condition of the certificate?
I think if anything, you would want to do it under an amendment, whether it's an official amendment or administrative approval, and then make it, you know, an ongoing condition in the certificate of compliance, because it's still, the order of conditions still open. So it can be a simple, you know, under the DEP order of conditions, you can administratively approve this plan with whatever conditions you so desire. Peter did respond to me before the meeting saying that he was fine with Matt's recommendations and including those. So, you know, if we were to administratively approve anything, if we included that as conditional, he would be fine with it.
I mean, I think we should have some sort of a, you know, whether it be administrative or otherwise, an amendment to the current set of conditions that they're operating under to include these.
Right.
Or specifically include Matt's comments along with Peter's plan.
Yeah.
Can we make that an amendment to the order of conditions with a simple vote? Is that how that works administratively?
Administratively, yes. If you want to just do it like as an add-on.
I mean, I would prefer it be an amendment to our order of conditions, and it's memorialized as part of our actual decision.
And I think that then sets a good precedent for other projects going forward as well.
Are you going to make them re-record it?
If you do it administratively, it wouldn't issue a new order of conditions. If you want to go through in a hard amended order of conditions, then it would open up the public hearing, a new order of conditions, and then recording. Yeah.
I mean, one of the things I would want to see is that the, the invasive removal plan, even after the project is done and he has a certificate of compliance, that remains an activity or an action that they have to continue to adhere to.
Yeah.
I feel like it should be a living document also, that, technology is going to change and things get better. We don't want them to be stuck with this. We want to see them accelerate too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever best practices evolve to.
Right, exactly.
Mhm.
So I think, we can still administratively through this meeting, if you want to make a vote at this meeting and include Matt's comments, I can write up, it'd be like an addendum, more so of a letter versus like an actual condition in the order of conditions, but it would still be referenced in the certificate of compliance.
Sounds good.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Good idea.
Okay.
And that way, if we run into any trouble down the road, we can still address it through an enforcement order.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
All right, so I guess what you're eventually going to approve on in a few seconds is the issue of administrative approval for this invasive species removal plan with the additional comments as outlined by Lucas Environmental.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
So we need to vote on this.
Yes.
So do I hear a motion to move that forward?
So moved.
That was Ben, and do I hear a second?
Second.
That was a tie between Sherry and Carl, I think.
Oh, Sherry can win.
Oh, thank you.
Sherry, second.
Okay, and we'll take a vote via roll count. Judith,
Yes.
Ben,
Yes.
Carl,
Yes.
Russ,
Yes.
Sherry,
Yes,
Mark, yes.
Get that done. All right.
Okay, next up, notice of intent, 32 Boston Road, map 55, lot 70. In accordance with Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Southborough Wetlands Bylaw, the Southborough Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing on Thursday, March 26, 2020 at 7:10 p.m. The commission will consider a notice of intent for a project located at 32 Boston Road, map 55, lot 70, for the applicant David Corbett. The project description is a septic system repair. This is being continued to a date and time to be determined later in this meeting. Do I hear a motion to continue?
so moved.
Sherry.
Sherry, second by
Second.
Ben. Roll call vote. Judith,
Yes.
Ben,
Yes.
Carl,
Yes.
Russ,
Yes.
Sherry,
Yes,
Mark, yes.
Do we want to talk quickly about the press release and the closure of the trails at Chestnut Hill?
I'd like to.
Okay.
So this has caused a little bit of controversy here within town. With everybody staying at home, and we talked before the meeting got going, we're remarking on how many people we've seen out getting some exercise. In a town with so few sidewalks, it's vital to have areas where people can go out and get some fresh air and get some exercise. People have been making extensive use of Breakneck Hill Farm to the point where on Sunday, Both parking lots were completely full, as was the shoulder of the road, the entire distance between the two. And even today at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, both parking lots were completely full at Breakneck Hill Farm. The closure of Chestnut Hill Farm, a property that's very popular, is pushing people out onto narrow roadways without sidewalks. And I've looked into it a little bit. The property, of course, is owned by trustees of reservations, and we hold the CR on the property. Now, looking through the CR, trustees of reservations, great organization though they are, I think they made a mistake here. They don't have the authority to unilaterally shut down the property. In their notice that they had done that, they cited the order from the Massachusetts Department of Health as the basis for shutting it down. So I read through that order as well, and there's no part of that order that requires the closure of public lands. And in fact, there's a portion of the document that recommends that people get outside and get exercise and simply maintain the 6 feet of distance that we've all become familiar with. So I think trustees of reservations, in good faith, made a mistake here. I think their closure of the property actually, I don't think they had the authority to do that. It doesn't become official until we do it. And I will say I'm a little troubled by in the letter, they say they actually contacted the police department to let them know that the property is closed, presumably suggesting that anyone who uses the property is trespassing. The citizenry of Southborough spent an awful lot of money to protect the right to use this property for passive recreation. I mean, a number in the millions. And I think the use of that property is vital right now, given what's going on. So I would recommend that we let trustees of reservations know that that we disagree with the need to close the property, and that we are going to keep it open, and that we request that they, within a very short time frame, remove the chain that they put across the parking area. So
So I totally concur with you, Ben. I think their notification was actually fairly confusing, because it did note that they were closing the parking lots, but neighbors to those properties would still have access. And they specifically said that they would appreciate if people complied with the usual regulations around dog walking, etc.
Right.
I think again, I haven't done a lot of research on it, but my understanding of how the DCR is handling this situation is that they have closed facilities that are manned. So for example, the Walden Pond Visitor Centre, the Quarbone Visitor Centre, other Mount Greylock, where there's a manned facility, those have been closed to allow people to kind of stay at home, but the parks themselves are all open. Certainly Hopkinton's been open the last few days.
Yep.
So my suggestion would be that we ask the trustees to align with the requirements that are being used, or the regulations that are being used by the DCR in this case.
and certainly if we hear from
Excuse me just a
Governor,
second.
oh sure,
Just a second. This is going to be more discussion, I feel. Can we just table this for about a minute and a half while we
Of course.
open and continue the other meeting that's scheduled for 7:20, in case they're interested in seeing the meeting get opened and continued.
Sure.
We'll come back to this, okay? All right. So it's 7:20 now. So this is notice of intent, bylaw only, 81 Breakneck Hill Road, map 21, lot 16. In accordance with the Southborough Wetlands bylaw, the Southborough Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing on Thursday, March 26, 2020 at 7:20 p.m. the commission will consider a notice of intent for a project located at 81 Breakneck Hill, map 55, lot 70, for the applicant Max Geesey. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. The project description is a construction of a new home and associated site improvements. So this is being continued to a date and time to be determined later in this meeting. So do I hear a motion to continue?
So moved.
I think Sherry was first.
Go ahead. Go for it.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
That's Judith. Okay, vote by roll call. Judith,
Yes.
Ben,
Yes.
Carl,
Yes.
Russ,
Yes.
Sherry,
Yes,
Mark? Yes. Okay, we can go back to the discussion on Chestnut Hill access.
Can I just read a portion of the CR really quickly that talks about closing trails? So it says in the CR that grantors reserve the right to close the trails from time to time for the purpose of maintaining public safety or to protect agricultural crops or wildlife. It does say in consultation with the grantee, but not approval of the grantee.
Now
So
that's the portion discussing hunting for the purpose of removing.
This is a different section.
Huh.
So that's in the one, I think, below or two below it. This is in its own section. It's section 4 of access.
Okay, now, section 3 of access, though, basically, item 3 of the access section is the one that guarantees, I mean, that's what we paid for right there, is number
Right.
3.
Yep. So they're, in talking with both SVT and the trustees, the reason that they're calling public safety is because if you go along a lot of the trails, Chestnut Hill, you can't maintain that 6-foot distance is one of them. And also it is a manned facility in the sense that it's an active farm and there's workers and families that live on the farm. So they are trying to protect the people who work and live there, you know, as well as the people who would be visiting. So at least I know that that's their justification.
can I ask, is it still closed as of today? Has anybody gone by to see that?
I drove past it today, and it's the parking lot is chained off.
Because the police got a new email saying that everything was opened again. And now,
Not from trustees of reservations, so.
no, my husband had mentioned it too, because I had told him that the trails were closed and I thought that was weird. And then he, the next day, came in and said he got an email from one of the firefighters who controls a lot of things saying that it was reopened. I just asked him to send it to me, but he's working and I can't get it now, of course.
What's the local board of health reader calling this?
I don't think they've had anything official on this. You know, they've kind of just been focusing on the logistics of the cases versus public access. Like I know a lot of towns are closing down public parks and playgrounds, and even some other walking trails as well. I don't know, a lot of people are asking, you know, SVT even said that, you know, people have been asking them to close their facilities down. While they haven't yet, it's something to consider.
I know, I mean, the Beals Preserve as well as Breakneck Hill Farm are open, because I went to Beals today and drove past Breakneck Hill. They're open and they're seeing a lot of use by people who you know, need a place to get out and get the fresh air and get some exercise, where they're not taking their life in their hands with traffic, which I think is even more immediate risk on a lot of our roads.
And my recollection of Chestnut Hill Farm is, and again, I'm going back, I only looked at the document once, is I thought they'd actually said that they were keeping open the farm stand.
They are.
Yeah.
Right, which kind of seems a little odd if the concern is to keep the farm
Well,
stand safe. but-
No, because it's a drive-through, so you have to order and then you open your trunk, they put it in and you drive off.
Okay, but that's a completely separate parking lot to the parking lot that most people use to access the trails.
Yeah.
So I don't see why we can't ask if they can, you know, give us a exception on opening up that parking lot.
My-
Or is there, I'm thinking out loud here, is that road still closed as a through road?
No.
It's back open again?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
Now, my reading of the CR document is that the Conservation Commission, well, the grantee, which is effectively the Conservation Commission, makes the decision on whether the access to the property is closed off. And a decision by trustees of reservations is sort of advisory to us. But ultimately, no decision's made until we take a vote on it.
I don't know. I think if you read that section 4, it says consultation with the grantee, but it doesn't require approval from the grantee.
The reason why I was asking about the Board of Health is my kids live across the street from Algonquin, and Algonquin is no longer open to the public, meaning the grounds. So they were able to go across the street and walk over there and ride bicycles and things, and they can no longer do that. I think that's as of today or yesterday. So
Southborough's the same. They
Yeah.
have to start kicking everybody off all the playgrounds.
So to that, then I question whether or not, Ben's not gonna like this, but I question whether or not Breakneck Hill and Beals should be open. Right?
Yeah, so if Baker or the Department of Health, get to the point of issuing a shelter in place order, then obviously I think I guess actually at that point, it wouldn't even matter if we declare them open or not, because we can't leave our houses,
True, but I think, sort of the theme of their order, is what they put in place is pretty much, stay at home unless you have to go out. So exercise in your yard, I know some of the streets are narrow and don't have sidewalks and whatnot, and jog or walk in the local streets or neighborhood. My kids are now going across the street and walking around the local neighborhood that doesn't have a lot of traffic over there in Northborough, because they can't use the Algonquin any longer.
Melissa, you said it was item 4 under the access section?
Yep. Make sure
Yeah.
it's at the recorded one too.
Okay, I mean, the one I'm reading, this is the one I got off of the town's website. I mean, it
Okay.
simply said, none of the grantor's activities permitted pursuant to this section wait, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
wrong section.
But the sentence right before that, the grantors reserve the right to close the trails from time to time for the purpose of maintaining public safety.
In consultation with grantee.
Yeah. So not approval, but consultation, which, they did try. I think it wasn't necessarily because they closed down all their properties across the state. It wasn't, Chestnut
Yeah.
didn't necessarily get the information ahead of time. But Mike did call me, as soon as he did.
Yeah, he didn't consult with us, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And given the amount of money that the town spent on this property, I strongly disagree with their decision. And if we conduct a vote, I'm going to vote in favor of keeping the trails open until there's an actual, public health reason articulated by the Department of Public Health, Massachusetts.
Who has decided to close down all the playgrounds? Was that the Board of Health?
I think that's the governor now.
The governor?
I think so.
I think Melissa's right on that. Yeah.
All I know is that the police are asked to tell people to disperse if they're on the playgrounds. None of them want to do it, but they've been asked to do so.
Yeah.
So is the golf course open?
No,
No, none of them are.
no.
But how many people are out walking it and using it?
Right?
Oh, good point, Ross. Good point.
That's my dirt as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
As well as people, walking on roads and sidewalks throughout town.
Exactly. Look, all we can do is tell people to practice their social distancing. You know who you came with, you stick with them, that's fine, I get it. Get out and away from everybody else and you'll be all set.
Yeah, I don't see a problem with putting a sign up at the beginning being like, hey, use at your own risk. Please stay away from other people. And, we
Pay
take no
attention and think
responsibility.
about what you're doing.
Yeah. I think it was that, some of the trails are very narrow, but then just also the people that have to work on the farm was the biggest concern for Chestnut.
I don't see where they interact, to be honest. I just don't see it.
I get it.
Yeah, and my 2 cents is that I would trust SVT to make good decisions on this. I mean, even though they close it, you know, there's a threshold, but they'll be concerned about, as Melissa said, the people that live there. But there's also, if they think it's a public safety issue, and we force them to allow people to come in, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, Judith brought up a good point. You know, they cite the public safety issue, but at the same time, they preserve the right of abutters to the property to continue walking it. You know, I think they shoot their own argument kind of in the foot there.
And I seem to recall it's, I mean, the way that I certainly read it was that it wasn't just abutters, it was anyone who could walk to the properties
Yeah.
would still be allowed to access those properties.
Well, that doesn't seem right. Either you can use it or you can't.
Well, that was certainly
Just because you're fortunate enough to have it in your backyard, you get to use it.
yeah. Or you
that
know,
doesn't
or
seem
you
right.
could, if you choose to park on the street and risk a parking ticket, then you can still walk there and use it. I you know.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's either open or it's closed. It's not, you know, something in between.
So is it worth so who did you say it's reached out to you, Melissa? Mike?
Mike Francis, yeah.
Is he the farm?
He is I think the farm manager for Chestnut, or one of them.
So maybe it's worth someone reaching out to DJ, I can't remember her name, the area manager, and having a conversation about it.
DA Hayden.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can reach out to them both and say, is there any common ground that we can get to where, you know, maybe only one parking lot is open with some sort of blockade that they can't go towards the farm stand area.
Yeah.
The northern, or I think of it as the lower parking lot, but it's the northern parking lot is devoted exclusively to the trails.
Yeah.
Okay. So you know, that can be our first step in trying to see if they'll open up that parking lot, you know, and just allowing some use of it because there's clearly an overuse of our other properties.
Yeah, and you know, I wouldn't be afraid to point out to them that they came to us with the hoop house proposal. And I don't know if folks remember that, but we kind of bent over backwards to work with them. I mean, we've tried to be a very good partner with them, and I think they need to take our interests as folks who paid an awful lot of money for these rights. I think our interests need to be taken into account here.
Okay. I will work on that first thing tomorrow morning.
So that there's consistency here, at least for me, I'd like to reach out to the Board of Health and get their guidance.
Okay.
Right, I don't want to be responsible for keeping things open that shouldn't be open because the trails are narrow and people are going to bump into each other because they can't maintain 6 feet of distance or what have you.
So I'll do that first, then before reaching out to the trustees to see if there's anything definitive that they know is coming or that's already been released in terms of this. So we can go to kind of the trustees with that first, or not if we find out from the Board of Health that it's a better idea not to have them open.
I mean, do other members agree with that? I mean, I feel that I have to lean on our health specialists and this kind of a thing.
Absolutely, and I think it's
Yeah,
a great
that would overrule
Okay.
that anybody does if it's a health issue, you know.
You know, and then if they recommend that it be closed, then I think, you know, we probably have the responsibility of closing all of the lands that we have responsibility for. Golf course, Breakneck Hill, Beals. You know.
That brings up a good question. Things could escalate very quickly, which they are already, right? So if between now and the next meeting, if there was a need to close it, how would that happen?
I mean, I think if it comes out, as a directive, either from the town side Board of Health or from the governor, then it'll just need to be done. Kind of, I've been keeping my eye out, we get daily department head updates. So if something changes, then it'll be put into place. If that is just something we need to comply with, then we'll comply. All right. Is there anything else?
I don't have anything else.
Okay, just from an administrative side, there's been a couple emails and questions. I think people are hoping that spring will come and they'll be able to get some work done. So a lot of tree removal questions and paving and things like that. So I've just been kind of working on that and working on letters to homeowners and working on outstanding permits and finding new contact information and stuff like that. So hopefully, just becoming a little bit more organized and seeing what's out there and making sure that nothing falls behind as the legislation kind of catches up to this issue. So trying to keep on top.
Very good.
Nice job, Melissa.
Whew. All right.
All right, so I think that's a wrap. So do I hear a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
So moved.
I heard
I
Ben
think-
first.
I think Ben was first, so Russell, you a second?
I am a second.
Okay. Roll call vote. Judith,
Yes.
Ben,
Yes.
Carl,
Yes?
Sherry,
Yes.
Russ, Sherry,
Yes.
Mark, yes.
All right, guys, I'll keep you posted.
Thank
Okay,
you, Melissa.
everybody stay safe.
Thank
Nice
you.
seeing everybody.
Bye, guys.
Goodbye.
Good night.
Turn it off.
Good luck.